welcome to Mental Health Monday podcast, where we are here to talk about mental health, everything that is us, you, and anything that sounds like we can talk about that might help. So that's what we're here for, is just to talk and understand myself. I am Bryon, and that is the lovely Anna, and I will send it over to her today to hear what we're going to be talking about on this lovely episode.
Are going to be talking about some of the nervous system basics. Last week we talked about naming our emotions and how putting into words our feelings can help calm the brain. But what happens when in the moment we can't necessarily name that emotion, which I think happens to everybody, no matter how trained you are. So, when the body feels activated before we even have words for it, what do we do then?
Perfect. That was great. Yeah, we react without knowing why we react and what is reacting and what we have words for those types of things, which if you know them, I mean, that's great, and we'll go through them. And but also, it is your nervous system, so when we come into conflict or confrontation or anything like that, we kind of respond, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. It's just our responding to that and responding to the things that happen and what we do for that. And I think we're going to start by talking a little bit about the nervous system, which is the body's command center for your safety. It is trying to figure out what is the best interest for you and what possibly could be the best way for you to feel safe. And it's going to push and pull you into a bunch of different places, but ultimately we'll go over those. But it's just good to know why you're feeling a certain way or which way you're getting pulled. So
Emotional literacy helps us interpret signals. The nervous system creates the signals. So basically saying the nervous system was created in us to let us know and to keep us out of danger, to signal to us where we could possibly be in danger. But nowadays that actual danger looks a little different than it may have many years ago, depending upon where we live and what our environment is. We're not out there having to deal, most folks, with the threat of wild animals attacking us. So hopefully not. So some of those cues can be skewed. And I think for me, it just really helps knowing that and knowing, hey, this is just my body trying to keep me safe from any possible danger. And so sometimes that anxiety feeling or the feeling of like where you may overreact is actually just a survival response that your nervous system is sending to your brain and into your body to help you either to help you handle the situation and to react to it. And so it's about understanding that and then learning how to best react to that situation as it is and not see it as imminent danger, such as running from a wild animal.
yeah, you said the key word there is survival, and that's where a lot of our instincts come from. And it's a good thing you said as well is evolution and evolving, and that's really a true statement. And what something I've learned through my mental health journey is a lot of these tendencies that we have as humans and why we have these ways our nervous system tends to react is a lot of how things were back in the day for hunters and gatherers and what kind of threats we had. And it's definitely evolved to a point where we still react in certain ways because of how the human was basically made in that regard. So, yeah, everything's evolving. And even like you were saying, in the last 5 years, wording has become different and just coping has become different. So, it's good to know the literacy. Like you said, we got to figure out what is the current terms. They could be changing today, tomorrow, 5 years from now. It's ever changing, but we have a pretty good solid flow what the body usually reacts with. So I will give those examples. We got fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and I think that's what we got is fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. We got four fantastic. I think they're all Fs. Yes, they're all Fs. So F times four. But we all get in a certain state. We react differently. And I think the first one is a most common one, which is fight. And that's one of the ones that's one of the hardest to deal with, in the sense that as I went into journeys and figuring out why I was so defensive, and that's a key word there, and that's usually my fight response. So if I'm questioned at work and I feel like I'm doing the right thing, I'm right, that's coming from my fight sensory of fight for yourself, like you're doing the right thing, like don't take shit. And I don't think that's an appropriate manner with a lot of situations. So that's something that I've had to personally learn from, and just know it's more about understanding that it is a reaction. And we'll find that out as we go through the many more emotions that go through when we come into challenges or confrontations. So let you take the flight.
Yeah, yeah. And I think with a lot of these too, I know I've experienced different senses, a combination of a lot of these different things at one time, depending on the situation. And it's very understandable and relatable. So yeah, so flight in, includes feelings of, say, like anxiety, overworking, perfectionism, busyness, and avoidance. So that's where it kind of can show up in your life. So, and I have definitely been guilty of this, staying constantly productive to avoid feeling something. I at times feel it, like just notice it, and then be like, okay, well, I'll deal with that later. Like, I need to go and do this, this, and this because I have this going on and people demanding time and things that I have to do on my to-do list. And I'm like, okay, I don't have time to feel that, which is a lot of everyday life. So I think if that's the case, one of the things I've been really working on is making a note and saying, okay, I'm going to visit this later today and actually work through it and assess the situation. But yeah, staying constantly productive to avoiding feeling something when you never go back and actually revisit and feel it, then it just ends up compounding over time.
Yeah, I think one quick note about that is one way to really look at any of these situations with confrontation or anything is what the grand scheme and what we'll be talking about, I'm sure, through many episodes, is going through something rather than avoiding something, is truly in a mental health way and a way to get through things in a better way, is to feel the feels, go through it. I'm very guilty of flight. I'm a very busy person, but I also have to understand that I have to take time to go through it. So that was very well read. And then we come to the oh so important freezer box. We got freeze, because that's when you shut down. You get numbness, brain fog, procrastination, or I don't know what to feel. And I don't know what I'm feeling. And I've been guilty of this plenty of times in relationships where there's confrontation and I don't know what to say and don't know what to feel and just shut down because I just don't know. So, I mean, this is very relatable. But what I've learned with this one in particular, just personal experience with that, is to at least express how you're feeling in that moment instead of just totally shutting down. Be able to say, hey, this is too much. I don't know how to respond. I'm in a spot where I am freezing. It is very important for communication. And even if you find yourself do freezing, just know that it's okay. It's natural. All these things are natural. It's just like we're trying to reteach our body to react better or give ourselves more time to actually react. So if you do come to something where
Mm-hmm.
you feel like you're overwhelmed or frozen or don't know how to react, my biggest thing is what I've learned in this mode is just to try to express that I'm in a spot where I don't really have much to say and I don't really know how to express myself because I need to think about it further and be able to come up with words. So that's where the freeze comes from, but we'll bring it back to you for the final F in the four F's is going to be Fawn. So just like you
Yeah,
bambi over
and
there,
one thing
let's hear it.
That's exactly what I think every time I hear the word fawn.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but first, I wanted to add something to what you said because I
Yeah,
absolutely love it, and is going and saying, "Hey," and name and saying, "I don't really know how to what I'm thinking right now. I'm experiencing some fogginess," and I think being so transparent like that, and also setting a time frame and saying, "Hey, can we have some time to sit on this so to clear out some of this fuzziness and revisit tomorrow?" I think that brings the accountability in because it shows, "Hey, I'm trying to figure things out. It matters to me, and I want to do so correctly. I
yeah.
want to do so in the best way that I can."
Trust me,
Versus
this is
like, "Oh, I just need to walk away."
trust me, I've done every version of this in the worst possible way to only say these things to you now in the last like year or two of being able to understand myself and understand why these things happen, but finding the best way to go about it because I have been a person in the past to walk away or like just say f this and just take a drive or whatever without communication because you feel like you're doing something like sticking it to the man, but in reality, you're just damaging more that you'll have to repair later. So, and these are all things that I'm saying that I know is not easy and I know takes time to get to a place to be able to say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. Let's circle back. The worst corporate term we can ever hear in our whole lives is let's circle back after we think about this. And yeah, beautifully added to that for sure. It's very important to understand that a lot of what we will suggest or what we will say or we give examples to give you the perspective that we've been in this before, and I'm hopeful and Anna's hopeful that the things that we can suggest or at least say is at least maybe promising. Like in my view, how I look at it now is definitely not my day one of trying to get through stuff vibes. This is somebody that's dealt with this stuff for a long time until I would say the last 5 years or so as a human, in the last 2 years, and the reality of being able to put a lot of this into practice and understand the benefits of really communicating and not just blowing it all up because I love to do that. So, but yeah, we'll let you talk about the fawning, the last F on this list.
Yes, fawning. I think that's one that a lot of people forget about or they don't really name. And that includes people pleasing, over accommodating, having difficulty saying no, merging identity with others. So, really, like essentially agreeing with when you don't want to or conceding, laughing off discomfort. Sometimes I would do that in the corporate world where I would have a bunch of things on my plate and somebody else needed something else and I would say, "Hey, I have this, this, and this going on, but I could still help you out." And then my best to hustle and get it all done. Laughing off discomfort could be when you just thinking about the men's hockey team, some of them may have felt uncomfortable with certain comments made recently while in the locker room, but they still conceded and laughed about the situation when they may not have wanted to. At least that's what I would hope. But it's a lot of different feelings along those lines. It's where you are going against what you believe would be right for you in that moment to accommodate others.
Yeah, really well said. I mean, I'm guilty of this one quite a bit. I'm always been a people pleaser, something I've always had to work on, but yeah, just trying to over accommodate to calm the situation down. I think that's a good way to look at it, or just, I was called Smiling Bry through my whole childhood, and it was because I could laugh during getting yelled at and everything else. So I know exactly what this is pertaining to in the sense of just people pleasing and just being like, hey, like this is uncomfortable, but this is what I react with. And yeah, I think we get put on the spot a lot with sometimes confrontation and things like that. And kind of just to go along with it is kind of the normal lot where it's understandable because as humans, this is the part we talk about. This is where we're human, and when human interactions happen, it happens in any one of these four F's when it happens, and we think about it later. But when we start to think about it in the moment and give ourselves grace and understanding to be able to figure out what's best for us and communicate that, is when we can get better with all of these. Because just because I say that if I'm frozen and I just need to like tell them I need time to talk about it or like think about it, doesn't mean that I might not fight, flight, or fawn about it. There's these all these things happen. It's just you just all this really is to try to reteach yourself and relearn and just really try to take all these things, you hear them, and you'll find that to be normal. And we're giving you examples as if it's like every single one of these feelings is normal and every one of these reactions is normal. This is just how we react. And the best thing about it is that everybody is somewhat the same in that way. And that's a nice thing to know, because when people sit here on a podcast trying to tell you that it can get better and can get easier, it should show you that it's like 100% true. And it takes time, and but it's all also understandable. Even when you're healed and you're the most healed person ever, you're still going to have reactions. So just to give yourself grace and give yourself understanding that like this is the human experiment and like this is what happened. So any of these things, they're not necessarily bad. You just got to be able to figure out how you can deal with them to help communicate what you need to feel safe or better in these situations, and not just let things happen and let it sit with you and bother you, because we need to go through things, explain things, find out why they bother you, and then they become less of an issue. So this is just part of the whole experience, because as I say, the waves always hit, life be life, and so we are always going to be hit with some kind of confrontation or something to go wrong. And these are usually our reactions to those things. And once we understand why we do those things and what we can do better, it's always about hitting a home run, but knowing that you can do it better the next time. It's all about it, just little bit of increments of space to be able to keep going to get better at things with knowing that there is no technical end goal, because we can revert back. There's just things that happen, but we just continue marching on and finding the best ways to be able to march on with all these things. So if you experience any of these four F's, just know that they're very normal. This is very human stuff. So just believe
Mm-hmm.
in yourself that you can be better, and that's what we're trying to show, some human relatability to that. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. One thing that you said that I really liked is taking control and not just allowing life to happen to you. And I just got the vision of if you know how to swim, it doesn't necessarily mean you can go out there and you're not gonna swallow water here or there, or you
yeah.
may not flail, because that's still gonna happen at times,
Oh, 100%.
by all
I still
means.
flail all the time. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. But at least you know how to swim and you're starting to be able to at least tread water, and you can take better control of the situation and how you react and how you handle that without freaking out as much. And that's really what I think this is to do is to this framework is to do is to help you recognize those situations and really help to relax a little bit better in the situation and handle it a little bit better so you aren't drowning. And and really to see, okay, this is how I handled before. How can I get stronger at this? How can I become a better swimmer? And you're not only helping yourself in that situation by understanding this and practicing it bit by bit, but also the other person, because it's really doing the other person or people, because it's being very fair to them in having as good of reactions as you can and trying to understand and ask questions. That's another thing too that I think really plays into this is both parties are coming at an interaction with different lenses and different experiences and different mindsets. So what you may think what you may perceive to be what their intent is and what they're saying. You're seeing it through your own lens. And that may not be the case with what they had intended to portray and communicate. So asking questions at that time too also helps to buy a little time and gain a greater understanding to build up and to also calm the nervous system down a bit in how so you can react or so you can I guess better communicate and move forward in how you proceed.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is too. I think you brought up a good point that I didn't really put into what I was saying. It's just it's definitely when you're having confrontations with other people, it is easy to definitely use a lot of these things to just get away from it and just like F this and all that stuff. And I think it is important to, if you're dealing with a spouse or somebody that's very close to you, it does become, it comes harder, but it becomes easier, I think is the best way to look at it. It's harder because you're trying to figure out what they need and what you need. And that's the biggest obstacle that you'll find with these things when it comes to confrontation and how your body reacts and how your nervous system does react. Because what I found personally about myself is I just need to cool down. So if I can give that amount of time, and I've dealt with spouses that don't like time in the sense that they just want to finish it now. Let's get this argument done. And, that takes time to figure that out where you have to come together and really like, hey, this is what I need. Hey, I see this is what you need. I don't know if I can match this. There's just a lot of teamwork that has to go in with that, but it's definitely great to build yourself up to know exactly what you need to ask of the situation. I think that is once you start to learn to be able to ask, I think communication is the biggest thing that we'll talk about over and over again. And that's the biggest part is learning yourself so that you can ask others or tell others what you need, and then you start to develop and get space for the things, and you start to feel better in general because people aren't pushing the buttons that they now know are buttons that can be pressed, or how you deal with certain situations or confrontations. It's really all about letting your presence be known to be able to take up space, because in a world where we don't get to take up space, this is definitely something that's very important, because we have to go, go, go and do, but we really have to start taking it slower and realize that anything that comes our way, if we just take the time to think about it or react to it rather than our instinct and instant reaction, especially with the 4Fs, it becomes a little bit easier, because once you keep running into these things or if they keep happening because life be life, and you're at least aware of what you're going to need or what your general reaction is and what you want to change about that. So it's just very important to understand that any different reaction you have now might be what you're going to have as a reaction, but you can build upon that to say, hey, this is how I'll get around that, in the sense that, okay, maybe I just need to take a breather and tell them I'll be back in 30 minutes. And then just just giving yourself a win here. That's what it is. It's just like being able to say, hey, you're standing up for yourself. But the only way that you can stand up for yourself is to learn how you actually deal with a lot of this. So it's very important. It's very important. Communication will be something we talk about forever and always. It's just really putting yourself out there to tell people what you need and what you don't need. And even the things you don't need, they're still going to put it to you because that's life. But being able to know how to deal with it because of how it's dealt with you in the past, that's why we go through all the shit in life, is literally so that we kind of get a playbook. And as much as we try to avoid learning the playbook, once we start to learn it, it becomes a lot easier. So I don't know if you have anything to
Yeah.
add to that.
Yeah. Yeah, where was I going with that? I was just thinking too about like you mentioned you oftentimes need a little time and my tendency with a lot of issues is I could use some time, but my brain also wants to have it resolved as soon as possible.
Yep.
So that doesn't always go well together.
Yep.
Um, so one of the things that has really helped me, and I mentioned earlier, is giving myself some time and asking questions so that way I can better understand where the other person's coming from. And then assessing, okay, is this something that we may need some time on to like sit on it, and how much time in order to best assess. But gathering those pieces of information, because a lot can be misconstrued, that has been very helpful for me. And it's hard to do all this at the moment in the moment. It really just takes taking a pause and asking and saying, okay, you're saying this. Am I understanding that correctly? Is this what you're meaning? And I think a lot of folks, they may be taken kind of aback at first, especially if you misinterpret it, but it's better than if you assume that that's what their interpretation is, or that's what they're trying to say. But again, it's kind of hard to do that when you're experiencing those feelings that rise up in your body, but recognizing it and naming it, or identifying at least kind of what it is, I think really helps the situation. I know like a lot of the times it's anxiety that comes up in me. So I may feel my chest tightens. I'll feel a lump in my stomach. My breathing will get shorter. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. That feeling of like panic or just overwhelm. And that really requires taking a step back and like breathing and slowing down and asking questions. I think for me really helps. I guess for your experience, how, like, what are some of the feelings or sensations that come up in you with some of the key in some of these areas with the 4Fs?
I You said something that's something I could talk about for about 4 episodes long, but it's assuming. Assuming is something, and that I think definitely bases a lot of off of anxiety. And for somebody that's had quite a bit of anxiety and continues to have anxiety throughout my whole life, is I never before could ask or re talk about, like, hey, is this what you mean? You said something great there that is something really hard to do in the moment, but to try to really find out what they're saying is definitely important. But for feelings and overall things I've had is just like, as a person with ADHD and some OCD thrown in there and stuff like that, I find myself feeling always like I had to defend myself and always defend who I was. So that would give me anxiety, tightness, and then like if it's too much and I feel like I'm just getting totally taken in a way of being not the person that they're saying that I'm being and everything else, I get real, I'll shut down. And that's one of the freeze ones that is perfectly could exemplify what I go through at times. But definitely a lot of anxiety, and that I think I was very defensive, so I was fighting a lot in that sense of having anxiety about being portrayed and trying to defend how I was thinking and how I was doing stuff. And I think that really built up my nerves, it built up my anxiety, and then it was just never cooling down to be able to like have real perspective. And that's part of the taking time. And the times that I have shut down anytime in the past year or so, being like, okay, like I don't have anything to say right now, like let's circle back. I know we can't figure it out right now, and even if it's just 20 to 30 minutes of just getting to a calmer state, things become a lot more clear. And I've had all these different types of emotions, and it's definitely like I've gotten anger, I've gotten anxiety, I've gotten, is this it? And then I've definitely gotten, let's blow this shit up, because it's subconscious of just saying fuck all this, and let's just throw shit at the wall and just, this is it, this is the big whatever. And it's all normal feelings, and a lot of people have those feelings and they go through it in a similar way. And I'm here to say you can feel all those things, but you can get yourself wrapped around figuring out yourself a little bit better to be able to have those feelings, but understand that what you're going to need to calm those feelings as well, to be able to wrap your head around why you're feeling this way, or even if it might even just be trying to take a break. We, I
Hmm.
say all the time, slow down, count the
Hmm.
small victories. You getting up in the morning, you walking 5 feet is big deals, because that's where you start to try to solve every problem is never going to be the case. And in this world, it never comes out that way. So just to know that we can look at things in a certain light and understand that we can slow down. Not everything has to be in fast forward or in real time. We can really Zach Morris time out and like slow the earth down when we are feeling these overwhelming, freezing fight, flight, or fawn. We can really, the biggest thing that we'll learn as we continue to talk about this stuff is just kind of give yourself grace. We're going to say grace way too many times, but that's a real word that comes up and is a real thing. We have to give ourselves grace and time to be able to really understand what's going on. And I think in a world today where everything's instant and everything happens and everything needs to be fixed and reactions and everything moves fast. Once you start to move slow with a lot of these things, you'll start to be able to make better decisions and better understanding of things, because fast and quick reactions, God, how many times have we gotten ourselves in trouble with quick, snappy reactions? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's never ending.
Yeah.
So it's really simple but not easy. Is what we need to do is just
Yeah.
take some time and really like give yourself some time to feel feel it out and feel understand it, including hearing what you're trying to hear from them, because whoever is on the
Mhm.
other side of any confrontation has a different way they feel and different situation they're taking on. So that's important to understand theirs. So communication, we'll get to that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and whatever their reaction is to whatever you say, that can create additional or initial reaction and feeling in yourself, and that's a whole nother area too. So it could escalate very quickly that way. That's how a lot of arguments start. It's okay. Okay, it starts off as okay, but then it can build, and it oftentimes is just misunderstanding. And I think that's where, like you're saying, having communication and getting to know somebody and seeing and or recognizing the cues, even if you don't necessarily know the person, being able to assess and see, okay, well, they seem like their voice is speeding up. They seem to be fidgeting. Like, what are the cues in this person do, as well as what am I experiencing internally? Given their cues, what are they possibly experiencing? And you mentioned ADD too, and like neurodivergent, that's a whole nother area too that we can go on later in the show or in another episode. But understanding your own coping mechanisms and being able to communicate those where needed to others, or having people around you that understand and identify what the neurospicy brain may experience in different situations. That's a whole nother thing, but where was I going with this? But yeah, just trying to assess the situation and knowing your own best coping mechanisms and refining it over time too, to see, okay, this is what I need when this kind of conflict comes about in this environment or with this person. How can I set myself up for the best success in working with them? But yeah, and really understanding, okay, this is how I've acted before. How can I tweak that? And giving ourselves and the other party grace as we work through it. Because really, it's just a matter of seeing, okay, where gaining an understanding of ourselves and of others, and seeing where can we come about and work together on this.
Finding that middle ground. It's the beautiful thing you were
Yeah.
saying. It is hard. It's very true. But as we try to learn our situations and what triggers us and what triggers the opposite person that we're having conflicts with, whether it be work, spouse, or anything else, we start to learn instead of reacting and then that turns into understanding the other person to where you can stand and you both can have a equal leverage instead of the one person just nagging you or however it looks. There's definitely ways to make this a level playing field, which in turn turns out to be way better and way more healthier than just reacting all the time. And that's one thing that you'll learn when you're saying, why do I react all the time? Why do I just can't stand this person at work or whatever? And there's a lot that we can do to understand them to a point where you can understand where you can stand in front of them and not let their things bother you while you are giving off your perspective in a more compact and better way. There's just what it really is we find ways to better play the game, if that's what we're going to call it. We're just trying to find better ways to play the game where we're not going to make ourselves upset. We're not going to hold ourselves any lower than we need to, and we can show up for ourselves and show up for the other people in the way that we're not going to let them win, in the sense that we're giving ourselves the best chance to play the game. So I don't know if you have any more towards this, but I think we can wrap this one up right here. But we have a lot we have to look forward to talking about. You said now neurodivergent before, ADHD, OCD. There's plenty of things
Mm-hmm.
that we'll get into that definitely have to do with this and every other topic that we will touch on. I think we both have plenty of life experiences and things that we deal with on the normal daily that will help people understand that, oh, that's why it's like that, and that's the most important thing, is learning, and that's what we're trying to do here, and we will throughout all this, and we'll be jumping around, but it'll all be vocabulary that we're just trying to get out in the head of in these early episodes to kind of brace the topics that happen later, where we just say things and we're hoping that you'll understand the vocabulary so we don't have to go in depth about a lot of these things, but we're here to help. You are normal and you are a beautiful person that's willing to listen about things that is hard to hear about. So if you have
Yeah.
any closing notes there, Anna, we'll wrap it right up.
No, just that. So we're going to piggyback off of this topic next week and go into nervous system regulation practices. Something that is like always evolving for and always changing for like ourselves. One way may work well in one situation for us and not so well in another. And it's great to share this information as to like what has worked and not worked for each person, because and then just try it out and see, okay, let me try out this, and it could work really well. So I know I've learned a lot from you and what you've shared with me and from others. And so yeah, some real life practices that have helped, and also getting from other folks what has helped them too.
I can't wait to share all of my tests and fails just to find some that work out of a long list of ones that never work for me, but I know that they work for other people, which is the beautiful thing with mental health. Is it's hard, it's expensive, but it's also worth it. And it's all about trying, and when you're trying, you're putting yourself first. So for the lovely Anna, I'm Bryon. This has been Mental Health Monday, and we're glad that you're here. We're glad we're talking, and remember, you're okay, and take a day at a time and a minute at a time, because you'll be okay.